Hello, and welcome to It's Kind of a Funny Story by Ned Vicinzi. So, in the story, we are met with a person named Craig. He is a teenager who lives in New York. Make Tim joke here. The story begins off with him and his therapist. However, that's not really the beginning, so we're going to start from the very beginning. In the real beginning, Craig Gilner is a teenager who worked his butt off to get into this very professional school in New York. Craig soon finds out he's accepted into this very special school, and so he hits up his boy Aaron to celebrate because, he just got into the school. Craig and Aaron decide to celebrate by smoking weed and throwing a party very later. They have a high conversation, and Aaron explains how his life is so great because of lawyers. And then he says he wants to become a lawyer, and this makes Craig think about stuff like what does he want to be, because he doesn't know what he wants to be. This is one of the first times that Craig actually questions his worth and his value. It's one of the main plot points that ultimately leads to his depression. And since they're teenagers, they just start talking about the hot chicks at their school and then walk home. Yeah. Fast forward to the party at Aaron's house because, teenagers. They invite a bunch of their friends and a bunch of people to chill with. And there's a bunch of booze, which we start drinking because, they're teenagers. Then, all of a sudden, meanwhile, at the party, this girl that they both kind of have a crush on, but they're kind of friends with, I don't know, it's a weird, complicated thing, shows up. Her name is Nia, and she shows up to the party. Aaron and Nia are the first ones to talk, as well as Craig, but Craig's kind of being awkward, so, kind of goes with Aaron because he's a stud, and they go to a room and start making out. So this is another plot point where Craig feels terrible because he chose his best friend over him, and he's like, oh crap, might as well keep drinking. Craig then passes out as he looks through Aaron's record collection, and he wakes up like a couple hours later, still next to the records, and it's funny. He wakes up and he sees that the party is empty. The only person there is this kid named Ronnie who's playing video games and replies to him about your mom or something. I don't know, he's an annoying character. Craig and Aaron decide to kick Ronnie out and go for a walk while the night is still young. They have philosophical talks as well as a bunch of bonding moments while they walk to the Brooklyn Bridge. After the party, Craig feels satisfied with life and he looks at the bridge and he's like, this is a wonderful place to commit suicide, which is a plot point that comes in later in the story. The two friends then part their ways and make their way home because, they gotta go home sometime. Fast forward a little bit, and as summer comes to an end, school begins, which is immediately hard for Craig because he worked his butt off to get into this special school, which doesn't help him out. It makes him very depressed pretty soon. Starts seeing his friends less and less. He feels dumb compared to all the other kids that are in there. It's just a bad time for Craig Gilner. He starts being depressed and stuff. It's bad. As all the depression builds up, he finally gets a therapist named Dr. Minerva. She helps him out and basically does her job because she's paid to do that. Yeah. Alright, so the rest of the video will be in Google Images because I started running out of space, but it'll be the same thing. Craig's depression worsens as he starts not being able to eat and he throws up after anything he eats. Because of all of the commotion, Dr. Minerva gets him on antidepressants. This decision actually works well, as Craig is now happy and enjoys life. He feels like Craig again. Craig also finds out that Nia is on antidepressants as well. In fact, Craig felt so good he decided I shouldn't even be taking antidepressants. I'm so freaking awesome. This, of course, was a big mistake. He had a nervous breakdown. He decided that he would just jump off the Brooklyn Bridge and stuff because he was a drag on his whole family and his friends. Luckily enough, Craig's grandpa has died, and he found his mom's book of how to deal with the death of a loved one. And there was a hotline for suicide in it, and yeah. He followed the instructions and he went to a hospital to check in. At this point, Craig's mother comes down to the hospital, talks to the doctor, to get everything sorted out. However, the doctor said that they're gonna have to take Craig into this facility where he could heal and make sure he's strong enough to rejoin the world again. It turns out, however, they put him into a kind of friendly mental ward. Right here he meets Bobby, a former person that actually went to the hospital, and he shows him around. Craig is shown around, and it turns out he has a bunk buddy in his kind of room. His roommate is Muqtada. Yeah, that's how you say it. Craig meets a lot of people, however, nobody really stands out except this girl, Noelle. She has a bunch of cuts on her face. Yeah. While Craig is staying at the hospital, he is making the most out of it, making friends, improving others and himself. Until he gets a phone call from Aaron, Nia, and a couple of their other friends. They're under the influence of drugs, and Aaron is kind of a douchebag to him, asking him a bunch of questions and make him feel uncomfortable. This ultimately makes Craig spill the beans about Nia being on antidepressants. After that, Craig continues to help everybody. He even learns a lot from Muqtada, who is finally starting to talk to people. He learns that his depression is coming from loss of love because of a very bad breakup, as well as the separation of his home place. He decides to surprise everybody at the hospital by showing them a movie, as well as getting a surprise for Muqtada on his own terms. But he gets his dad to bring him the copy of Blade 2 to show to everybody at the hospital. Why Blade 2? No idea. I don't think it's that good, but yeah, that's cool. One day before the movie screening, however, Nia comes to visit Craig at the hospital. She says her and Aaron broke up, and she kind of got that teenage vibe going on, so her and Craig go to the rooms. They don't see Muqtada, so they just start making out for a bit. A good 3 minutes later, however, Muqtada sees them and he pulls them off of each other while calling for security. While in the rush of panic, Muqtada asks, "Who is this?" And Craig says, "Nobody," and this offends her, and she's like, "Oh, hell no." So she leaves the hospital very angry and very sad. Surprisingly, Craig is thankful for Muqtada's actions, because it was just his teenage emotions getting a hold of him. Craig then just decides to sleep it off and wait till tomorrow. The very next day, Craig fulfills his promise and shows everybody Blade 2. However, him and Noelle, halfway through the movie, decide to blow it off and go make out and talk and hug and make up or something like that. As they make out, they just suddenly stop and decide to hold each other while talking to each other. As the movie finishes off, they have a sweet, cute moment in the book, and yeah. As Craig's time at the hospital comes to a close, he decides to get closure with everybody. Luckily, Noelle is getting out in a couple days, and he decides to surprise Muqtada with a record that he got from his dad, who borrowed it from Aaron's dad. And he surprised Muqtada with this, and it made him very happy. Before long, it's Craig's last day. Muqtada is out of his room finally, and he's greeting other people. When he sees Craig and he notices it's his last day, he decides to thank him and give him a hug. He thanks everybody for helping him out just as he helped them, and he finally kisses Noelle, my bad. They both start with N. Noelle gets out in a couple more days after him, and he promises that they'll meet each other a whole bunch of times and live happily ever after. So Craig's parents come pick him up, and on the way down on the elevator, Craig swears to himself he's too young and too fragile to be thinking about depressing thoughts. He needs to start living it up. He can't be wasting his life being sad or glooming about some things. He knows what he's gonna do. He's gonna grow old. He's gonna paint. He's gonna make up with Aaron. He's gonna make up with Nia even. He's gonna grow old with Noelle. He's just gonna have fun with all of them. He's just gonna live it up. He's gonna be the best fan. And yeah, that's kind of a funny story. It's a really good book in my opinion. I especially loved it during the period that I was reading it in. Finally done. It's 2:30 in the morning. Yeah.